Hello everyone! Welcome back to the channel. The Halloween apocalypse has landed, so let's review this thing.
Yeah, that'll do it. I'll do it nicely.
So yeah, the Halloween apocalypse episode 1 has come out, and welcome to my in-depth review of the episode 1 of series 13 stroke Flux. I've got to admit, I was really surprised. I was expecting a slow start with a build up to a crescendo and a cliffhanger at the end. I was not expecting the first scene to be as really good as what it was. You see the Doctor, you see Yaz talking to what I presumed at the time was some sort of alien mushroom, because all you can see is just a straight blue line and a weird helmet thing. But obviously later on in the episode we learned that it's Carvadistra, and I thought the whole CGI on a pole thing was good fun. It really was. It was silly, it was daft, and it was just typical Doctor Who. It had the whiff of an 11th Doctor, 12th Doctor sort of mad energy, and it was fun. It really was fun, and you can see the connection between Yaz and the Doctor. Especially in this bit, I thought Yaz had started to speak with a little bit more confidence, a little bit more assertiveness, a little bit more character build now that she doesn't have to wait for 3 other people to talk before she can get her story over. It was a very strong opening to Flux, and I was very happy with it on that acid planet. Really cool CGI. If that's how the whole series is going to look, I thought the trailers looked great with the CGI. We found out what those blade things were. They were at the very beginning of the episode, so it just goes to show how little they put into the trailers to try and stop the spoilers. But I really enjoyed the very beginning of this episode. Yaz in this episode was fantastic. Where's this Yaz been? I've wanted this Yaz since series 11. She was a lot more assertive, as I said before. She was confident. She's more assertive. She's obviously been travelling with the Doctor for a while now, because she called herself former PC of the Havisham Police. I think that's where she's from. And the interactions between her and John Bishop's character of Dan was great. But Yaz, as a character development, took, I'd say, about 5, maybe even 6 steps forward in her character development, and I thought the writing for her was absolutely spot on. She's really taken up a step up in quality for this part of the episode where it was building up towards Carvadistra on the ship and everything, and it was great. It was absolutely fantastic. The beginning, I thought all Yaz was in this episode was great. If it wasn't made obvious before that the Doctor is looking for the Division, she wants answers on her history. And that's why she said to Yaz, we're going to see about a man about a dog. But that man is a dog, and his name is Carvadistra. And his race of Lupari. See, I thought the Carvadistra were a race, or I was certainly led to believe it was a race through the advertising. But Carvadistra, we found out, is an agent of the only living agent of the Division, which was interesting. So it just goes to show it must be an interplanetary thing. Are they working with the Celestial Intervention Agency, maybe? You know, the Time Lord version of the CIA? He's certainly pulling the strings of some classic stuff here, but also trying to weave his own history. It looks like Chibnall is trying to do, and I thought it was very well done. Like I said, this episode was very bombastic. It was very quick moving, very fast. I've seen some people call it chaotic and a little bit they didn't really understand what was going on. I think the people that said that haven't watched series 12, and they didn't watch halfway through series 11. I would say they're the sort of people that have done that sort of thing. But I've done a little list here. You'll have to excuse my awful writing. I've watched the episode about 12 times now, 12, 14 times I'd say. I've watched it for certain bits. I've watched it at a slow rate. I've watched it, and I've been looking for little things, little clues, and there's not many, I've got to admit, but I think there's about 15 plot points in this story which are leading up towards the end of the season. I've got to admit, we're seeing a little bit more of the Broadchurch Chibnall with his writing. He's obviously gone for a more episodic one story. He's done for what his strengths are. And personally, myself, I think he should have done that from the beginning. I think the story and the Alien of the Week really damaged him, and it hasn't helped. But this is something different. The Flux is a massive interplanetary destroying machine, and the Doctor's only got 6 parts, and I think this has been wonderful. But if I go and have a look at my list here, random digging in Liverpool with the Mole of Liverpool, I think he's called. I think because I watched Mr. Tardis' video the other day. Well done, sir. Another quality video. It didn't make a lot of sense, this bit. Are they pointing at maybe Dan being a ancestral person of the Mole of Liverpool, maybe? You know, to go from all that money and, you know, to help people of Liverpool doing the tunnels. He's got such a affirmation of who he is. But this digging one, I just didn't get. There's only there's only a couple of downsides to the episode. The episode is rated quite high, but I've got to say that little bit didn't really make sense in the episode. It could have gone into another episode, or maybe even a prequel. Maybe, you know, like the way they used to do with season 10 and 9 and 8, but, you know, the Moffat era, do a little bit of a prequel rather than shoving random clips into the episode. Personally, myself, I'd have done that, because this Williamson Mole thing just didn't make any sense. Now, this is probably my favourite bit of the episode, and that it wasn't the bombastic aliens, it wasn't the attack, it wasn't, you know, the Doctor, it wasn't the TARDIS. It was meeting Dan Lewis, seeing how much passion he has for Liverpool and wanting to work in a museum, and his, you know, his failed date with Di. It was a little bit upsetting up here at the end with Di, but we'll get to that later on. But I really enjoyed Dan Lewis. I thought he was great. I thought he had enough energy and passion, bang, and, you know, he's been dropped at the deep end here. He really has, and it's great to see him do it. And the one thing I'm looking forward to moving forward is seeing how Dan reacts to certain things in the TARDIS. But what did he mean in the TARDIS that he had a mate and it made it look bigger? Is he a former companion of Ruth? That is what we'll wait to see. Now, the next thing on my list is a big one. Is the TARDIS dying? Was it bleeding? Because obviously that bit we've seen after the escape of the Swarm, in obviously with those 2 agents of the Division, which I thought was very, very interesting. That wasn't the obvious bit. The obvious bit was the TARDIS reaction. Do you think the TARDIS was maybe injured because of the psychic connection to the Swarm? Because as we know, the Doctor is connected to the Swarm. But as we saw all the way through this episode, the TARDIS has been having problems taking off, landing, going to certain spots. There was a rumour going around before, as I put in a previous video on the channel, that they thought the TARDIS was dying. Personally, at the end of this episode, I think it's happening. I think she's actually dying. And how they're going to fix it, I genuinely don't know. Because as we're getting closer towards the 60th and the centenary special, are we going to get a Doctor without a TARDIS? That's a big question. This is a bit curiosity is abound, and it's another bit that I thoroughly enjoyed. This will get a certain up and a big thumbs up at that. The next bit, which is really interesting, is meeting the Swarm. Now, the Swarm, I didn't know what to think about it. I thought he was cool, I thought he was calm, and the way he took care of those division agents just shows how powerful he is. I think he could stand toe to toe with even the toughest of Doctor Who enemies, you know, with Rassilon or Omega. He's certainly a god level being by the looks of it. Well, we obviously but the big question was, he changed his form. Was that a regeneration? It certainly looks that way. It's like he used the energy like the old Master did when he stole the body back in the 80s when the Master regenerated into Anthony Ainley. That's certainly what it looked like to me. He looked like maybe he could be the Doctor's original race. So it's going to be quite interesting because he's got a history with the Division. He was locked up by the Division, by the Doctor. So it's obviously Ruth's Doctor. It's going to be pre-Hartnell. So curiosity is abound where they're going with this. And like I said before the season started in my 5 things, that is one thing I want. I want them to throw Timeless Child at us. I want to see an end to this. I want to see the full story play out before Chibnall and Jodie leave. And that is superb. I'm really enjoying the Swarm. And his introduction was another great one. That's another up for me. This next one was a bit of a weird one for me. This is one that I wasn't. This is one I was totally 50-50 on. We go to a random place in the Arctic Circle, and we meet a couple. They're out there talking about a pepper in the fridge, and then an alarm goes off. They walk to the garage, and what I presume is the person's wife walks up to that said alarm, smashes it, and says, "We didn't get a warning." And then it just ends. Again, this felt a little bit like the Swarm, not the Swarm, the digging in Liverpool. It felt a little bit random. It wasn't very explained very well, but obviously it gets sorted later on in the episode when we find out that the wife is the sister of the Swarm called Azure, and very interesting. I thought it was very interesting. Did he disintegrate the wife to turn her into Azure, or did she regenerate like he did, because it was a totally different effect? So I don't know. Maybe that'll get answered later on in the season. That was one bit that I was curious about. But this one little bit where we meet the couple was a little bit random. They could have just not done that bit and then just done the bedroom bit. It was just a little bit strange. It was a bit that was the bit where I'm 50-50 on whether I like it or not. One of the favourite bits was the Lupari. We only got to meet Carvanistra. We didn't see any others. We saw their ships though. They had ships that were flux proof. How did they know about the flux? What was the energy of the flux? If they knew that, why did they tell the Doctor? This was one of the bits that I did like, but the information was low on the ground. It didn't explain itself very well, but I thought it was very plot devisory. We need something to get this done to save this, to get this here. So they got the ships to surround Earth and save it. That was the clever bit. I liked the Lupari. I liked Carvanistra. People were joking that he looked a bit comedy-like, but I think that was his job, because there was a lot of seriousness to the role. You know, you look at the amount of monsters that were in this. We had some Tyrants, we had Angels, we had obviously the Swarm, we had the Doctor who wasn't in the most funny of moods, we had who else do we have? We had the Williamson. It was a very dark, centric, pushing, bombastic episode, and I think it did need a little light, and I think the Lupari and the Carvanistra did that. I thought it was a great little story, similar to, you know, like the Ood used to do with David Tennant. Whenever the story went dark, they either added an Ood or a Sontaran or something comedic. Like the Spider episode with Donna. It's all about adding certain things to the story to try and make it more engaging. And I do believe Carvanistra did that. And that gets another up. I enjoyed the Carvanistra. The next bit. Now, the next bit I want to talk about is Vinda. Outpost Station Rose. We saw that. You knew we'd see that. I think Shibnall was putting a bit of spice in there to try and get us excited to maybe getting like a Captain Jack introduction for Series 13 of Flux. Do I think we're getting Rose? No, I don't. She has been trying to put feelers in there. I don't think we're getting Rose. I genuinely don't. If we do, it will be a huge surprise to me. But I don't think. I think it was genuinely just an Easter egg. But I saw a very interesting thing somebody told me was, what if this isn't the Doctor's universe, but Rose is working for the Division in the past as her Torchwood? And I was just like, well, that would be a twist and a half, but I can't see that happening either. But Vinda, we didn't get much of Vinda. He's obviously done something wrong because he's abandoned out there. He's just on a job and he's telling his advisors to go to hell. So he's obviously broken some sort of Time Lord law for to be stuck on the Division outpost out there in the sticks. But when we saw the Flux in full action, it was terrifying, and you could get that feeling from Vinda, and that's the one bit of this bit that I really did enjoy. We know Vinda plays a very large role going forward in the series, and I've seen several images that have come out this week on BBC Twitter that have released that Yaz and Vinda are meeting in episode 2. So we've got that to look forward to. I'm looking forward to this new Yaz meeting Vinda. It's going to be very, very interesting. If she can keep the energy up from episode 1, it's going to be a good one. Now, this bit put a big smile on my face. I can't help it. I like the Sontarans. I do. I love the Sontarans. I loved them when they turned up with John Pertwee. I thought they were fantastic in all the episodes they've done. I enjoyed the Sontaran stratagem with the 10th Doctor. You know, we got Strax with 11. But seeing, what was it, Station Commander Krieg, who was actually the original actor for the Sontaran stratagem, and who is Strax, and the saying he's old and he looks disgusting, it made me chuckle. And again, that made the lift it just a little bit higher, just to get that little bit of light, because it was a very dark, very bombastic, very fast episode, and to put that little bit of a chuckle in there was funny. But what's interesting is the difference between these Sontarans and the Moffat Sontarans and the RTD ones. They're not very comedic to a point where you know they're going to be funny. They're like, I would say these ones are more like pigs. They're like war pigs. Like, they see war, devastation, death. They jump on it. They love it. That's what they love. They love to be in the dirt. They love to be the disgusting things of the universe, like hyenas after something's been hunted. They're there to finish off the bones. So it's going to be interesting in the Sontaran, I forgot what the episode was called, the Sontaran War. It's going to be interesting because I'm looking forward to this new character of, is it Krieg? I have to excuse my writing because I can't understand it. So I'm looking forward to that character. I'm loving the new Sontarans. They're great. That's another up for me. The next bit that I didn't quite understand was, why did Azure and the Swarm go after Diane? We met Diane with John Bishop's character of Dan. She was lovely, and why have they taken her? Why have they kidnapped her? You know, obviously the thing that I think that connects it all together was when Carvanistra did the whole mind trick thing on Dan and it didn't work. He must be a descendant of that Williamson, and it's got something to do either with the Angels or something. It's got something to do with that. He's got to be a descendant of some sort of ancient protector race or something. He's got to be something. Because there's got to be a reason why they took Diane. Because Diane was just a museum curator. Why would they take her? Unless she's some sort of alien herself. We don't know. But I'm sure to find out in the future. This bit where they took her to some sort of water-based canal or somewhere with water. She looked terrified. I was terrified for her. This part of the bit was okay, and it got me curious, and that's the whole point. If it's one thing in Doctor Who that I am very cherished over, that I love a lot, is the TARDIS. Love the TARDIS. Love the model of the TARDIS. Love the ship. Love everything. One of my favourite episodes, which is probably in my top 3, is The Doctor's Wife. Where we meet Idris, who is the soul of the TARDIS. She finally gets to speak to the Doctor. Cried in that episode. It was fantastic. Seeing the 13th Doctor hitting the TARDIS constantly did bug me a little bit. But if the TARDIS isn't working properly, what else is she to do? Because this next bit where the Flux is coming for Earth and the Doctor's trying to escape, but she can't escape the pull of the Flux, so she uses a hammer to smash out the heart of the TARDIS to give it time vortex energy. Did she just kill the TARDIS for the sake of trying to stop the Flux? I certainly hope not. She obviously knows what's wrong with the TARDIS and she hasn't had time to fix it, because when she came back from the mind connect of the swarm, she was worried, really worried, and to do that just to add trouble to it, I don't know where it goes from here. Personally, myself, when the next episode kicks in, I think it's going to be the HADS, the Hazard Displacement System, that gets them out of there. The TARDIS will just kick in the HADS and they'll end up in Crimea, where everything in time's already happened. The future is already, it's already a Sontaran planet, and I think the whole thing is going to be an absolute cluster. It's going to be a mess. But the 13th Doctor's going to do her best, and I'm starting to enjoy the little snippets, the little snaps of it, the little snaps of attention from the Doctor, where she knows she's too little butter spread over too much bread. She's starting to snap a little bit. She snapped with Yaz, and she didn't care about Dan joining the TARDIS team. She just hasn't had time to speak to him yet. But she's a very busy lady, so I'm trying to wonder where this goes. But I'm hoping that the TARDIS hasn't been killed, or the soul hasn't gone missing from the TARDIS over the Flux. That is the one thing I'm hoping for, because I was very, very worried, as you saw in my reaction in the previous video. Okay, this next bit was the bit I left till last, because it's the most curious bit. Claire from the future meeting the Doctor. She obviously knew Claire in that Anfield Road. A little bit of family history I've got in that street personally myself, to see that was quite unique. To see Claire meet Yaz, like she has an affiliation for Yaz, so I think there's an adventure in the future where Claire works with Yaz against the Angels, and obviously then we've got the Doctor versus the Angels in another part. We've seen that with filming pics. But this little bit was curious, and to see the Doctor not engage as much as she should have just shows how worried she is. But she was more interested in the Carvanistra at the time and not the Flux. So to dismiss Claire the way she did was understandable. But then to watch her get attacked by the Angels and sent back in time, in the trailer we see another character of where she's obviously gone to that state house. So we know where she's gone, we just don't know which episode she's in. But this bit was fantastic and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I've been training myself all week to open my door backwards and don't blink. So yeah, that's been my little review of Doctor Who episode 1 of Flux, the Halloween apocalypse. I did not expect this episode to be as good as what it was. It didn't start off slow and then build up to a crescendo like I was expecting to. It gave us a good slap in the face and didn't stop. You couldn't turn anywhere without trying to take that information in before this bit turned up, and then this bit turned up, but before you could finish that bit there was another bit turning up, and I got to admit I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was no... It went back to a time where I would say a bit similar to David Tennant, where the pace was quick, it was picking up, it was good. We've never had that from Chibnall. He was just throwing information at us, and that's what we wanted, because I think this episode alone has more rewatchability than the last previous 2 seasons, and that is saying something. This is the first time, not just for review purposes and for doing stuff on the channel, I genuinely thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It had so many questions. I haven't had this many questions to ask myself as a Who fan since before the 50th, and I'm getting excited, I'm getting giddy for Sunday. And all I can say is, well done, Chibnall. You knocked it out the park, son. Don't drop the ball. Please don't drop the ball. You're on a run. Keep it up, please. You know, don't want you to leave on a sour patch. I really want, you know, Jodie to end on a fantastic note. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode, and I scored it a solid 8.5. And it is in my top 20 episodes of Who ever. Obviously, there's over nearly 1,000 episodes of Who now, so obviously it's highly rated, this episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's certainly been Jodie's best episode so far. She's a lot more Doctor now. She still hasn't had her Doctor moment, but we're certainly going to get one before the end of the series, and that's genuinely how I feel. I think the highlights of this episode were Mandip Jazz. I thought her performance was superb. Dan, brilliant. I knew Dan was going to be superb. And I got to admit, I think one of the bits that made me smile constantly was the Tyrants. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and then the end. You saw my reaction. The end. I hope to God the Tardis isn't dead. I'm terrified of the Tardis being dead. So, if you liked the video, hit the like button. And if you'd like to continue to support the channel, hit that subscribe button. And always have yourselves a wonderful day. Take care.